Alright, first of all, yeah, I'm not dead. There hasn't been much content since last 2 weeks. Well, the place where I live, it got hit by some heavy rainstorm, so no power or internet for some days. Also, the sudden shift in temperature from fairly hot weather to freaking cold and humid, I caught some nasty cold and fever. But I'm a bit better now. So let's talk about the final beta changes for 3.3 units. And as usual with these videos, I'll go a bit further and share some of the issues that I found with the units. So leave a like if you find this video helpful, and let's get started. Let's talk about lootbar.gg, the best top-up platform for your favorite games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and now Zenless Zone Zero. It provides some crazy discounts on every item there is, and it's super easy to use. Just go to lootbar.gg, select Honkai Star Rail or whatever game you play, select your preferred pack, and then type your UID, select your server, and click on top up now. With just a few clicks, you can get your hands on some awesome deals. Lootbar also has tons of positive reviews. There are also limited packs like this one with even more discounts, and this also applies to PlayStation and Xbox users if you can place orders through Lootbar. Not only that, some of your favorite content creators, including me, uses Lootbar for every in-game purchase. So just click on the link in the description or in the pinned comment and check out lootbar.gg right now. Now version 3.3 has to be one of those patches where we didn't see any crazy changes. Now we did get a bit of a roller coaster ride with Cipher, and that's what we are going to talk about mostly in this video, as Hyacine didn't really get anything major. But there is one good news, kind of. So let's talk about Hyacine. As I said, nothing major happened with her kit, and as I have already explained how she works, we don't have to go through with it now. The good news is that finally they reduced her ultimate cost from 150 to 140. Now this may not seem as crazy, but if you guys remember, the one simple issue that I was talking about in my first impression video is that Hyacine was not getting 100% uptime on her ultimate state, which is really important, as Ika or Little Ika, whatever you wanna call it, only takes turn when Hyacine is in her unique state, and she was just shy of just a bit of energy. But now with 140 cost, she can easily have that 100% uptime on her state. It's not as big of a deal, but it does make her more consistent, and I personally like that more. Now on to Cipher, the main topic of this video, and goddamn my worst nightmare. Not because she's bad, trust me, she's a really good unit, and quite irreplaceable in her preferred teams, which I'll talk about in a bit, and anyone who plays those teams should pull for her, with some caveats, which I'll also discuss. The main issue with her, or was with her, is that she is quite stat hungry, and also requires good investment level, especially in the light cone section. Now if I were to give a simple TLDR of her kit, as I have not discussed that in any of my previous videos, Cipher is basically a debuffer and a sub DPS. She applies debuffs from her skill while dealing damage, and the most unique thing about her is her talent. She has this unique debuff called Patron, which she applies to any one enemy target in the battlefield, and any attack that any of her character deals to that target, Cipher records some of that damage, and the more you attack that target, the more damage Cipher records, and then she unleashes all that recorded damage with her ultimate as true damage. This is really unique, as now her damage output also depends on her allies' damage, meaning a team with more damage sources, like now even supports like Tribi can deal solid damage, will be great for Cipher. Also she does damage herself with her constant follow-up attacks, making her great for follow-up attack teams. Also she has this passive that gives her a bunch of crit damage, but more importantly, it makes all enemy targets take 40% more damage. This is one of the craziest thing I've ever seen in a kit. A 40% vulnerability with 100% uptime is just broken as hell, and makes her solid for any and every team. Now about her build, the main thing she needs is speed, a lot of speed. Not as much as Hyacine, but she needs to reach 170 speed in order to trigger this passive of hers, which increases the amount of damage she records and gives her a lot of crit rate, which is really important as she needs quite a lot of stats. A few things to keep in mind while building her is that her debuff from her skill is not guaranteed to land. It has a 120% base chance, and given most elite enemies have around 40% effect res, you need to get 40% effect hit rate on her to make sure that debuff from her skill lands. Now there is a silver lining here, like you mostly will need that debuff while playing in an Akron team. If you're planning to only use her in a follow-up attack team with Fei Xiao, then you might not need that. But, and trust me, there's gonna be a lot of buts, if you get her signature light cone, this also has a debuff that needs around 40% effect hit rate to land, and this debuff reduces defense, so you cannot just ignore it. Now it's not as hard to build a bit of effect hit rate, like she already gets 10% from her bonus stats, so you only need 30%, which is definitely not a lot. But you also need to keep in mind is that you need that effect hit rate with 170 speed, a decent crit rate and crit damage, and some attack, as for some weird reason her attack stat is pretty low. And that is the issue. If you have been around my channel, I always try to provide a decently achievable reference build in my guides, so that players will have an idea on how to build a unit. With Cipher and the amount of stats she needs, it's really hard to find balance between making her a complete support and only relying on her reserve damage, or focus on making her a sub DPS and build some damage stat on her to maximize both her reserve damage and her follow-up attack damage, as those have some good multipliers. Or I guess they used to have. In version 5, they heavily reduced her personal damage multipliers. So I guess Hoyo wants to focus more on her reserve damage, which kinda makes her a bit easier to build, I guess. Well, here's a build for her if you have her signature light cone. This light cone provides 18% speed, making it super easy to reach that 170 speed goal. For relics, since the light cone gives that much speed, you don't need to use any speed relic sets, and the eagle set becomes a really good option. For ornaments, pretty much anything goes, but after V5, a supportive set like the Lushaka set can be super awesome in my opinion. For main stats, you can opt for a crit damage body if you can get 30% effect hit rate from substats, or you can just go for effect hit rate as a main stat. Obviously a speed boot, an attack percentage or damage sphere, just get the one with better substats, an ERR or attack percentage rope. Now I'm still doing calculations on which one is better, but given the recent nerfs to her multipliers, I'm leaning more towards an ERR rope to more focus on her reserve damage output, and it does work better with the eagle set. Now if you do not have a signature light cone, then things becomes a bit harder. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing, as it does help the channel grow and motivates me to make more content for you guys. Now here is another build without the signature light cone. Here the Resolution Shines light cone kind of becomes the only good option, I guess. Cause like when you take a look at any other 4-star options, you will clearly see how anti-synergistic those light cones are. Like most of these Nihility light cones are either dot based or have conditions that just does not work with Cipher. But Resolution Shines is anything but bad. In fact, this is one of the best Nihility light cones, as it applies a debuff that reduces defense. The issue is that it's not guaranteed, meaning you need to build effect hit rate, and since the base chance is only 100%, unlike the 120% in her signature, you need to have around 67% effect hit rate with the speed, crit and attack. So at this point, I would simply say to just focus on a utility build than a DPS build. Just opt for an effect hit rate body and just try to get crit damage from substats. The passive will also help a bit. As for the speed, since you are not getting that 18% speed increase, opting for a 2-piece speed combo set would be a much better option. You would still need around 13 to 14 speed from substats, but it should make things a bit easier. Everything else is the same, and that's basically it for her build. I'll provide more info and some damage charts in my guide, so wait for that. As for what do I think about her value as a unit, well, let's talk about that now. I think Cipher is a solid unit. Like, the 40% vulnerability itself makes her an insane unit to have for pretty much any of your teams. And the reserve damage mechanics is both unique and great. Her current best teams are with E0 Akron and Facial, and if you have those teams, then you should definitely pull for her. But with units like Finon and the Fate collab right around the corner, you might want to skip her. So in the end, is the damage difference with her in your team justifies pulling for her? Now for a follow-up attack team, we do have units like Topaz and Moza or Hunt March 7th, all great units, but the damage difference is still very significant. So much so that if you are a follow-up attack team user, I highly recommend getting her. As for an E0 Akron team, well, things are a bit different here. For this team, Cipher will most likely replace Pella. And yeah, here as well the damage difference is significant. Literally, when you have a unit that gives like 40% damage taken to the enemies, with massive true damage, of course the difference will be huge. Up till now, an E0 Akron team only had Akron herself dealing majority of the damage, but now we are adding a second damage source, so obviously it's gonna be better. But there is still something that can be a solid reason to skip her, and that's gonna be the upcoming Silverwolf buffs. Now we do not have any confirmed information, but there has been some news circling around the internet, and if those news ends up becoming true, well then Silverwolf will be in a position to compete with both Cipher and Anaxa in terms of utility. Now keep in mind I only said utility. In terms of their personal damage, yeah, both Anaxa and Cipher are much better. But if you are someone who is looking forward to units like Finon and the Fate collab, and also have a Silverwolf sitting around in your roster covered in dust, the upcoming buffs might make her great again. Now all of these are still unconfirmed information, so take all this with a grain of salt. But what I will suggest is that if you have Silverwolf and are interested in the upcoming units, is to just wait and see what the buffs for these old units are. I'm sure we will get more solid info before Cipher's banner goes away, so just wait a bit, have some patience. Overall, for Hyacine, even though small, the changes are good. As for Cipher, she is not as broken as she was in V4, where she was dealing more damage than the main DPS in the team. But she is still a great unit. I guess the value of both of these units are pretty similar. Like the places where these units wants to play in already have other alternatives who are working just fine. And these new units are basically an upgrade over previous units. Now if you want that upgrade, then go for them. Or if you are satisfied with what you have now, then I guess you can skip them. And that's going to be it for this video. Although it was both for Hyacine and Cipher, it ended up becoming more of a discussion on Cipher alone. My next video will be focusing on vertical investment for these units, so do look forward to that. Like and sub if you enjoy my content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.